Solutions.
Yes, yes.
Chief?
Okay, so being the chief of police, I do lead by example. And like Captain Jock was saying, we got our national night out program. I brought it to Solid City in 2008. And we're currently ranked 4th in the nation in towns over 15,000 for our national night out program.
Wow.
And that particular program is have really set this, I guess, set the tone for what my leadership is about in Solid City. I believe that, again, when the police and the community work together, that you can get things done. Because at the end of the day, crime is not just a police problem.
No.
You know, we just get paid to do full time for duties which is incumbent on each of you. Because safety in your neighborhood is, I hope, is important to you. Yeah, we all want the same things. So again, leading by example and really being out in the community. And I love being the first African American chief of police. I take pride in walking in the white shirt, letting kids see folks that look like them. My town that I'm the chief in, we are 75% minority. We are a super minority majority. If you look at the news, you would think that all HEL will be breaking loose in my town. But that's not the case. And I'm gonna tell you something else that I done last year that hopefully will show you my passion. 50% of my town is Latino. To better serve them and to better understand them, I did the unthinkable last year. I went to Mexico. And I went to the city that majority of my residents was fleeing.
Really? Wow.
And when I went there, I seen poverty like I've never seen before. I seen why you would risk coming to a strange country, not understanding the language, to risk it to help your family back home out. So I came back to Solid City after my 2 weeks in Mexico with greater empathy and greater compassion. And I submit to you, if you want to be an effective leader, regardless of what kind of work you do, if you got empathy and compassion for the people you're serving, you're going to do a better job.
Wow.
Wow.
Outstanding. So what are we doing in Apex? I can tell you what Chief said about empathy and compassion. That's how I try to live my life every day, not just in uniform, but out of uniform. I often say that we have to remove the uniform so people can see the heart behind the uniform. So simply showing up and doing a photo op in uniform, and then once the camera's gone, they don't see you anymore. Or you go into a program in a community and they never see you again until there's a hot call. That's not effective community policing. They have to get to know not Captain Jacques Gilbert, but they have to know who Jacques Gilbert really is. He's a person who's invested in the Apex community. He's a father, and he's a brother, and he's a servant, more importantly, to the people. And that's what I try to instill in our officers at Apex Police. I want to share with you one success story that kind of relates to what Chief Tyson talks about. And it's about breaking down stereotypes. So you ask the question, what is going on out there in the community? It's simply that fear has taken over and caused divisive situations. Division, okay, is the trick of the enemy. If we can divide, we can conquer. And that's what's going on in our communities. In 2012, I received a vision to work with a skateboarder, okay, a skateboarder to build a skate park in Apex. Of course, let me tell you how this got started. I met this young man on a call, and we didn't see eye to eye because he was skateboarding in his own driveway, and he was making a lot of noise, which is against our noise ordinance. So I told him, I said, you have to discontinue skating. And he said, where am I supposed to skate? Now keep in mind, I had ran this kid around town for about a year because he was trespassing on church properties and different business locations, our downtown district, which is a nuisance to our business owners. So, so when I left his house, my spirit just wasn't right. I said, that is not Jacques Gilbert, that's not how we handle situations. So this ended up being a problem-solving opportunity. So we met at a local restaurant, and we just started talking. And what we understood at that point, that we didn't understand each other. I simply looked at him initially for the torn t-shirt and the baggy jeans they had on and the big hair. And he carried a skateboard. And he was looking at me as a man in uniform who carries a badge and a gun.
Yeah.
So we just misunderstood each other. That was a aha moment for me. That led to him and I working together and bridging a gap between police officers and skateboarders, which historically is not a good relationship. But I can tell you now, as a result of that relationship, we were able to satisfy many skateboarders in the community. And now we have a skate plaza, award-winning skate plaza, $1 million project right here in Apex, North Carolina. So with that also, him and I and my family, we were invited to the White House by President Obama for the success of that project. So that right there is another example of how law enforcement and the community come together in a problem-solving opportunity. So we want to use that as a model also for other police departments to look at.
Awesome. That is amazing. That's two great stories right there. But I drive by that skate park. That skate park is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So this is what it's all about. Community building. Now, he shared something. He could have just let that go and, man, that's just another skateboarder.
Right.
Chief Tyson could say, oh, I have a lot of Hispanics. Okay, let me see how I can deal with these Hispanics. The man said he flew to Mexico. Come on.
My goodness. And that's impressive.
That is impressive.
Yes.
That's love. That's love.
Yes.
That is love. There's something that both of you said, and I want to ask this question, and you guys get your questions ready, but why do I want my black son to be a police officer? Tell me that, because they're growing up to fear that. So why would I want, you guys look good. You look good in your uniform, right? You look good. But why would I want my black son to become a police officer?
To put things in context of the crisis that we're seeing in law enforcement today, historically, we graduate between 2,200 and 2,400 officers per year in BLET, the basic law enforcement training. Up through September the 30th of this year, we have graduated 400. We went from 22 to 2,400 to 400. So folks are not wanting to come into law enforcement, and I call it the YouTube effect, and we'll kind of talk about that in a few minutes. But to get back to your question, I got 3 daughters, I don't have any sons, but I would want my son to come to law enforcement because when done right,
Yes.
there's no other career you could go into where you could help people and be a positive influence on people like law enforcement. I love my profession. Right now, I've been in it 28 years. I could be getting ready to go out of it, but I refuse to leave my beloved law enforcement profession while it's in the condition it's in right now. And so I encourage African Americans to come into law enforcement because that's a big problem. Unfortunately, my department, we only got 2. Captain Gilbert said he only got 2. Something is wrong.
Yes.
Why are our young people not coming into law enforcement? And that's some solutions that we need to be talking about today.
I would have to concur with Chief Tyson. Why wouldn't you want to consider law enforcement? I can tell you why. because it's just not understood in the African American community. I wasn't discouraged from becoming a police officer by members of the community, to the point I received phone calls that were not good phone calls, threatening to harm me if I continued the path of becoming a law enforcement officer. That's when I knew I had something good. Right? That's when I knew I had something good.
Yes, sir.
I believe that as some of you may understand this, it's an Egypt mindset. We have to get out of that, and we have to know that it's a call.
That's right.
It's a call to serve. What better way to have influence in a community and make impact, as Chief said, because you have so many opportunities to meet so many different people in a community, and they look at you they call for you on their worst day. And if we can have those with compassion and empathy out there, it's going to be a better community. Because it's not a matter of the heart, or it's not the heart of the matter, it's the matter of the heart. So if we have good people with good hearts, as he said, out there doing great work in the community, we're going to have a better place.
So how do we encourage that? How do we encourage the young black male to say, I want to become you guys are model. You're the model citizens of this profession. So how do I convince my 14-year-old? How do I convince my 10-year-old, that 11-year-old now? That's right. How do I convince them that that's a good path? It's a good path to look to be a law enforcement individual.
Brother Mario?
Yes.
Brother Mario, I would say that they need to come to a department like mine and come to my office and let them go on a tour. We need to inspire our young people and plant those seeds that are very early. They need to be planted early in their life. And I think that's my recommendation is that we need to be mentors. And I know if a young kid came to me and said, Chief Tyson, I want you to be my mentor, I would gladly be his mentor. And one of the things that I can do as a chief of police, and I think this is very important, as the chief of police, I can sponsor someone going into BLEC. And what that means is if I sponsor you, your tuition is waived. You're talking a couple $1,000 a waive at just my signature. I have sponsored probably 50 people over the last 9 years I've been the chief. And I've put a couple of African Americans in my beloved profession.
Wow, that's impressive.
It's very impressive. I'll just say this. I think setting up a booth in uniform, unfortunately, with the millennials, they look the other way. Again, going back to a mindset. It has to be a renewed mind. So traditional programs, the way we've done things in the past, is not effective. So there has to be a better solution, something different, something we haven't seen before. So I talked about it earlier. We have to remove the uniform, and they have to see the heart behind the uniform. So I'll tell you some of the things I do. So I go to a lot of high school football games, basketball games, sporting events, or just simply a grocery store. Right. And I would just approach people and say, hey, how you doing? And just exchange words. And then as we get into a conversation, which my wife sometimes is very annoyed with, because it's an hour later, we now have started a relationship. The seed of trust has already been planted. So once I share with them at the end of it, oh, by the way, I'm a police officer. And they look at me in amazement, like, you're a police officer? You don't act like a police officer. Right. The time I spend at the skate park I mentioned before, there are people who come from all over the United States to that skate plaza. Mm-hmm. And I go there out of uniform. Intentionally, I don't want them to know initially. And I start talking to them. And I get the same response. There's no way you're a police officer. So simply put, if they can see me as just Jacques Gilbert, and then once they know me for a period of time where I build that trust with them, they will see that, wow, if Jacques Gilbert can do it, I certainly can do it also.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so right now, does anyone in our audience have any questions for us right now? If you do, I can walk to you and... Please state your name, sir.
My name is Michael Sams. I want to first of all thank both of you for your service and what you're doing. And listening to both your stories, I hear, because originally we're from Connecticut, and I've known people, guys from my Air Guard unit that were police officers in the city of New Haven, and a friend of mine. And the key thing you strike on is being known by the people, because I knew these guys outside of them being in uniform, and that's very important. And Chief Tyson, one of the things you mentioned that I really like, and I wonder if it's something that can be more organized, is to have like a group of kids, especially, you go to some of these neighborhoods, like you say, the only time they see cops is when they're coming to arrest, in less than desirable situations. If there were programs where kids in grade school can come and visit a police office and interact with police officers, at some point once a year or something, I think something like that would really go to the heart of what you both are talking about. And where people don't see a uniform, they see, that officer that I saw in school, and he was really nice. And, they gave me lollipops or whatever, but something like that I think is important, because reaching out and touching and having people see you as the person, I think is very, very important. So maybe expanding something like that, I think would be a very good item.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, and we are doing, I don't know about Apex PD, but we do have schools coming in, taking tours. But I'm not just with the school though. I would like to see some of the leadership in the community be more aggressive in bringing kids to the PD. The police department is the people house. We work for the community, and you should be able to come into your police department at any time and be able to speak to the chief, be able to take a tour. I know in my department, my door is, Pastor Austin, my door is open all the time. Anybody can come and see me. And I think that's the type of transparency that a good police department need. There's nothing secretive about what we do at the police department. The police, they like to call it secret SPS, secret police stuff. It ain't no secret police stuff, I mean, we got certain cases that, yes, we can't discuss it, but in general, what we do, we need to be able to, you should be able to see. So yes, I think we need to be more aggressive in bringing people into the PD.
And I like your thing about beyond just schools. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say I've spent 7 years as a school resource officer, so I understand what you're talking about at Apex High School, and I got to know a lot of students, and it's such a great thing to see former students that now have their own families. Outside of them making me feel old now that they have families, it's still good that they come back and say, you really made an impact on my life, and I do agree, if we can start early and build those relationships early on, it's going to be effective. Now, there's another side to that. The millennials, we know, are very loyal to each other, and we have to get other people that have influence to join with the police. As Chief Tyson mentioned before, it's community plus police equals one team. So if we don't have people out there advocating for the police, we're not going to move. We're not going to move at all. And I'm an optimistic person, but we have to have people that other people trust and have the influence to join with us. And not saying that we are not recognizing there's a problem, because we're both here and we understand there is a problem.
Right.
But we're here to discuss solutions, and there is one solution that I know is effective. I'm sure we'll get to that later on, but I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you so much. We did have a few questions that were presented ahead of time, so we want to also get those in, some of them from our Facebook Live audience. We recognize you out there. Thanks for being with us. Give us lots of hearts, share us, keep letting people know about what's happening. With that being said, there's a two-part question here I want to present. The first is, how long can an officer hold you at a traffic stop? The second one is, due to the many traffic stops over the past couple of years that have escalated into deadly force, what are some of the do's and don'ts you should do when you are stopped by the police?
Okay, normally a traffic stop lasts for, I think 10 minutes is reasonable. And that's for a traditional traffic stop with a citation being issued, about 10 minutes. If it's much longer than that, it's too much. With the traffic stops, the main thing you want to do on a traffic stop, the very first thing, find a safe place to pull off. Put your emergency lights on. Don't hit your brakes and stop in the middle of the road. Put your safety lights on and slowly find a safe place to stop. Once you come to a complete stop, do not be making any kind of movement. Just keep your hand on the steering wheel, remain calm, and let the officer walk up and ask you for your license or your registration. A big mistake that people make is as soon as the blue light get behind them, they start going into their glove compartment looking for their registration. Women start fumbling through their pocketbooks trying to find their license. And as an officer walking up to a car that don't know who's in it or what they may be up to, if we see a lot of movement inside the car, it's just going to make the traffic stop a little bit more dangerous for everybody. But that's just roughly just a few tips.
I agree with Chief. Whatever is reasonable, okay, and that depends on a few things. One is, what is the nature of the traffic stop? So at Apex Police, in our general orders, it is mandatory. It's a requirement that when the officer approaches the vehicle, they must identify who they are and what the traffic violation is about. All right, so once we establish that, they should move on with the violation. Now, I do want to share this because this has come up before. You may get information that you don't have to give information to the officer. I wouldn't advise that. I would encourage you to comply with the officer. All right, now we can bridge over to an officer who's not being reasonable. There is a problem in their behavior. On the side of the road is not where you want to get that taken care of. So we have a complaint process that you need to, and we welcome that. We have a complaint process. You just simply come to the police department and go through those order steps. But I do want to say, whatever is reasonable on a traffic stop, so we deal with that situation, then we move on. If you don't share information with the officer, well, you may miss an opportunity, because you do have compassionate police officers, and I'm sitting beside one today, and I can honestly say this. I have gone up to the vehicle with the intent, with enforcement action, and once I understand the situation, the whole situation, it's changed my mind. So I want that to be understood to everyone out there. The other question was about what should you do? I always say comply, comply, comply. And what that means is do exactly what the officer is instructing you to do. And it's as simple as that. As Chief said, making any quick movements. We have a concern when we're approaching a car. If you throw in the factors of low light conditions and things like that, we don't know who we're stopping, so you have to be really careful and comply with what the officer's asking you to do.
Awesome. You know, we have a question in the audience, but I want to tell you something. Just hearing these men's passion, but I had an instance the other day. I had set up a interview for Captain Gilbert, and he couldn't make the interview. It was a good radio station. It was going to bring recognition. He said to me, man, I was mentoring some kids. So when you have a heart like that, it's not, he could have been like, it's about me, I need to get this done. He showed right there, my heart is for people. He was mentoring kids. And that right there shows the compassion that he has for people. And that's what we want. We want more police officers like that. Compassion.
My name is Elizabeth Bartholomew. I'm in Apex. My question is, and a lot of females can relate to this, what if you're at night, and I've heard this on read it on Facebook, and I've seen articles and heard things on news about the safety of women driving at night, being pulled over by an officer and they're by themselves. What is the best safety advice that you would give your wife or your daughter if they're driving late at night, coming from a friend's house and they're being pulled over, in regards to, because I'm like you, comply with the officers and pull over, but would it be in the best if I don't know if that's really an actual officer? A lot of times it's an unmarked car. So.
Okay, so yes, we do have unmarked vehicles. All right, it's two things you want to look for an unmarked vehicle. Number one is the blue light, and then number two is the siren. Okay, so the blue lights, they put the blue lights on you. All right, you don't know for sure if it's a police officer. So what you want to do is put your lights, your flasher lights on, and go very slow. Pick up your cell phone, call 911, and say, I am at 5th and Dogwood Street. It appears to be a blue light behind me, but the car do not look like a marked unit. Do you have anyone stopping a vehicle at 5th and Dogwood Street right now? And what they would do is do some checks real quick. But in the meantime, though, again, go very slow, because what happened, you're not stopping. And so if it is a law enforcement officer, it appears that this may be getting ready to be a chase.
Right.
And so things get real intense at that point. But that's one thing you can do, is to call 911 and just ask, do anybody have it, is somebody stopping? And what they would do is get on the radio and say, is anybody stopping a vehicle at East 5th and Dogwood? Even if they hadn't called it in, they say 10-4, I am. And then, they'll let you know on the telephone.
I think Chief just answered that intelligently. Yeah, I have no more to add to that.
Thank you so much. Again, want to get those comments from our Facebook Live audience. Thank you again for being with us. This is a question that was presented ahead of time. And this is a question I think that is going to be major moving forward. Right now, we see that there is an argument in the community. Some people are saying Blue Lives Matter. Some people are saying Black Lives Matter. And so the question that was posed is, do you think movements like the Black Lives Matter movement can be a positive movement to bring more support between the police and the community? Do you think that's possible?
Okay. I'll tell you this. I have a heart that's split right in the middle. I'm a police officer, but I'm also African American, and not necessarily one is priority over the other. I will say this: the Black Lives Movement are a group of people. There's a sentiment there that I do agree with, and for us to ignore the views or the sentiments of another human is totally unreasonable. So how can we expect to build trust if we're not willing to listen? I think people have a different way of expressing their views, and I may not agree with some of the behavior that's attached to it, but again, I agree with the sentiment. So we have to make sure that we don't dismiss